Let's start with prisons. What's your strategy to increase places?
Well, we published today our 10-year capacity strategy. We will be building 14,000 prison places by 2031. And our strategy today is detailed. It's a realistic plan for delivery of those 14,000 places. It also exposes the extent of Tory failure from the last government, who had promised 20,000 places to be delivered by the mid-2020s, but in fact only delivered around 6,000 of those. So this is a plan to deliver the rest of that programme, the full 14,000 by 2031.
OK. I believe that lots of prison places will have to be taken out of circulation because of fire safety problems and repair work. How many?
Well, there is an ongoing programme of fire safety
on these
works.
14,000.
Well, yes. So it's
not going to be 14,000.
No, 14,000 new prison places. I think it's very important to be clear about that.
14,000 net places or not?
Well, so the net will be affected by fire safety. We always, on every single year, we lose some cells to dilapidation, for which we do maintenance works, and for which we've already put forward a further £300 million for 25-26 into more maintenance. By the time you get to 2030-31, the size of usable prison places in the estate will be over 96,000.
But you're going to need 100,000 places, aren't you?
So, as our strategy makes clear, because this is the first time we or any government is publishing both the supply and the demand for prison places, you will see that even with building, even with the delivery of the 14,000, we do still run out because the demand for prison places is going up. Well, that's why I announced the sentencing review a few weeks ago, which will report in spring of next year, because we have to do everything. We have to invest in maintenance so that we don't lose too many cells to dilapidation or, as you say, fire risk. We have to build, and we will deliver these 14,000, but it's still not enough. And so we are going to have to do things differently in this country. That's what I've asked the sentencing review to look at. And what I've specifically asked them to do is to make sure that there is always a prison place available for people that have to be locked up for reasons of public protection, that we can do a better job in prisons of helping people turn their lives around so they don't commit more crime when they come out, and to expand the use of punishment outside of prison as well, in a way that the public can have confidence in.
How can you be sure you won't be releasing more prisoners early in the next few years?
Well, look,
You can't make that promise, can you?
Well, I've obviously had to make some emergency decisions. I don't want to be in a position where we ever do emergency release of the kind that we've had to do, the so-called SDS 40 measure. I am straining every sinew to make sure
So you can't make
we're not going to do any more emergency releases.
In the next decade?
Well, I mean,
in the next
I'm not
5 years, let's say.
Well, look, I'm not going to do any more emergency releases of the kind either
So
I've had to do at the beginning, or as the last Conservative government did with their early release scheme as well. I want to avoid that scenario. We will not be doing that. There are other operational measures that we might have to take to try and stabilise the prison system, so more people potentially on home detention curfew, something that we're already
to that end,
Parliament.
Your Prisons Minister, James Timpson, believes that 2/3 of the prison population shouldn't be in jail. Do you agree with him?
Oh, well, look, James's comments before he became a minister are James's comments before he became a minister.
So
the position of the government is that we will build more prison places. The number of prison places in our estate is going to go up. The number of people in prison is going to go up, but that is still not enough. So I want to make sure that we are able to run a sustainable prison system so that no government has a sort of inheritance that I've had, which is where we were running out of prison places and we're just one bad day from disaster. Well, the projects that are currently going through that represent this 14,000 already have planning permission. But what we've said is if we need to acquire more land in order to make sure that the country has the supply of prison places that we need, we will buy more land and it will go through a faster planning. Well, I'm not going to predict now where that land is going to come from. Obviously, prisons are large-scale developments.
Will you rule out building prisons on Greenbelt
I'm not going to rule anything out in terms of the land on which future prisons might be built. I don't think anybody would expect me now to decide that, but what we've committed to in our I think you don't know what's going to happen in 10 years' time, what the land availability is going to be. What we've said is if we need to acquire more land in order to build the places we need, we will do so. And when we have acquired land, it will go through a much faster planning process, because as we expose in our strategy today, the real Tory failure here was taking on their own backbenches and letting planning bog them down.
Let's press on. I'm reading that Hundreds of trials are being derailed because prison vans don't transport the defendant to court on time. That surely can't be true.
I've had that issue raised with me by a number of people within the criminal justice system. I'm looking very closely at the performance of the prison escort service. Obviously, any delays, we want to make sure that trials are not affected. I don't believe at the moment that is as a result of supplier failure, but I am looking very carefully into how those delays are occurring and what we can do to make sure that doesn't happen.
And would you re-examine contracts if it's proven to be the case?
I'll re-examine everything. I want to make sure that trials, when scheduled, are able to go ahead and there are no unnecessary delays that prevent victims from getting justice.
Let's move off topic. Royal College of Nursing say that a pay increase of around 2.8% is an insult to workers. It's not worth the price of a cup of coffee. How much do you value nurses?
Oh, well, of course I value not just nurses, but the public sector workers that I am responsible for in the justice system, whether that's prison officers or probation workers. This is just the first phase of the government making its evidence available to the pay review bodies. There's an independent process for which evidence is submitted. That process will run in the normal way. I wouldn't want to get ahead of that and what future decisions might be made. But of course, the government has to set out an initial starting position as part of that process, which is what we have done.
Below inflation?
I think we've set out our position. It'll be for the pay review bodies and that independent pay review process that now takes place.
I thought you were supposed to be a party for the workers.
Well, I don't think, of course, we are a party for all types of workers,
offering
not just both public and private sector workers. Well, look, I think we've got to reckon with the fiscal inheritance that we've had and the difficult choices that we've already had to make. The government's start position for the pay review negotiations has been made clear, but of course that is an independent process. It will now conclude in the normal way.
You gave a shed load of money to
go ahead and get ahead of that.
You gave a shed load of money to rail workers when you first came into power. Avanti West Coast staff are telling us they're going to strike over Christmas now. What's your message to union workers?
I mean, my message to all workers is that, you know, this is a national effort to try and make sure that public service delivery in our country actually works. And this is a government that wants to partner with workers in the public sector on making sure the public sector is productive, that we have a programme of reforms that are designed to make...
strike?
I wouldn't want to see any strikes, of course not. I'm sure the Transport Secretary is working very closely with the trade unions that she ultimately has to deal with to make sure that we can avert strikes and make sure that the service that people who use the train service expect is delivered, and also that services across the public sector are delivered as well.
What are you going to do about farmers?
Well, look, I'm sure that my colleagues in DEFRA and in the Treasury are listening very carefully to the representations that are being made by farmers, but the government's position is clear. The agricultural and business property relief is the right change. The vast majority of family farms are not going to be affected. We only expect around 500 estates every year to be...
Those are your figures, not theirs.
We only expect 500 estates to be affected. And it's important, I think, to remember...
They're all bringing their tractors
I understand that, but
I
think it's important to remember that the first 3 million of the value of an estate passes tax-free. Anything above that 3 million
you're not going to move
is
on
taxed at 20%, which is still much lower than the 40%
so you're not going to
everybody
move
else
on
pays. So the policy has been decided. We're not changing course on that.
Okay, fine.
But I would say that it's a fair decision, and we are, of course, investing in sustainable food production and other things that I know matter to farmers.
Got it. Let me just ask you to clear this up before I let you go. I know we're almost at the end of our interview time. Agit Karatas, apparently you hosted Agit Karatas. He has now been arrested as part of the PKK, a banned Kurdistan Workers' Party. He was arrested by counter-terrorism police in London. That's an exclusive story on our channel. Why did you host him?
I don't know who that is, and I don't know who hosted him.
Well, I'm told it was hosted by a Labour MP. According to Liz Bay. So you are not aware of the story? I don't know who that is, and I don't know if it wasn't you that hosted it, was it still acceptable? For some... You don't know the story?
I don't know that story, and I don't know who that is.
A Labour MP hosted a man at the centre of a terror group probe in Parliament just weeks before his arrest. That Sky News can reveal. Agit Karatas is one of 6 people who were charged on Tuesday with being members of the banned Kurdistan Workers' Party after an investigation by counter-terrorism police in London. The PKK has been a proscribed organisation since 2001. Karatas, a 23-year-old Kurdish rights campaigner, is part of the Centre for Kurdish progress. Now, you may well not have hosted him, so forgive me, I may have misinterpreted that, but he certainly has been hosted by a Labour politician in the House of Commons in October. Given that, is that appropriate?
From what you've read out to me, it doesn't sound appropriate. I'd expect both the House authorities and also the Labour Party to investigate and look into the matter.
OK, as Justice Secretary, you wouldn't be happy about it?
Well, from what you've read out to me, that sounds deeply inappropriate. I don't know who that individual is, but the organisation that you described as a proscribed organisation, I don't know what was known by that Member of Parliament, what was known by the House authorities. Obviously, it would be appropriate for an investigation to take place.
Let me just tell you who was there. In attendance were, it wasn't you, so forgive me on that, but it was a Labour MP, so do accept my apologies. Science Minister Ferial Clark, Labour MP Afzal Khan, Independent MP Shotkat Adam and Lord Michael Cashman.
Well, look, it obviously sounds like a serious matter. I would expect both the Labour Party and the House authorities to investigate what's happened. I don't think I can usefully add any more to that at this stage.
We could talk about it further, but I need to let you go. So thank you very much indeed for joining us. I really appreciate it. Thank you.